Welcome to the Juxtaposition Podcast, a podcast for and by local citizens in Grays Harbor County, Washington State, and Andrew, Iowa. I'm your moderator and co-hostess with the mostest, Felicia Mullins. I'm a citizen of Grays Harbor, and welcome to Juxtaposition. With me today are Juxtaposition's fearless co-host, Mathew West of Grays Harbor, Washington, and Ziggy T, a citizen of a small agricultural community, very beautiful, Andrew, Iowa. Mathew and Ziggy, thank you for hosting today.
My pleasure.
Thank you,
So right
Felicia. Glad to be
now,
here.
thank you. We're so glad both of you are here, Mathew and Ziggy. Right now, this segment, we are starting out. So this is our first episode, and it's also kind of a demo episode. But we are starting out on our journey to provide you sound and interconnected information in the environment, socialism, or society, I should say, not necessarily socialism, and economics. But for now, who are we? So I want to introduce you to Ziggy T. Ziggy, go for it. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Felicia. Glad to be here. I'm really excited to do this show and bring information and exciting new perspectives on hot new topics to our audience. As you said, I'm in the Midwest. I actually started out in the Midwest, and as you know, at one point in my life was out in Seattle for quite a while in the Pacific Northwest, and life has circled me back to where I started. Before I took that venture to Seattle, I went through a significant life-changing event that was really a rebirth of sorts, not a religious rebirth, but rather a gender rebirth. I changed my gender role to align it with my gender identity, the gender my brain always said I was, which was male, and so I went through that process and started a new life in Seattle, and then I met you through your family, and we got to be great friends. And then we've been talking about this idea. It incubated. Boy, this baby has been, has been in the egg now for a couple of years almost, I think. But I am ready that it is sticking its head out and ready to breathe and live in the world. So I'm really excited to do this. And Mathew, I'm excited to hear all of the things you have to say and to have great conversations and entertain lots of people and engage people in our democracy. So glad to be here.
Thank you so much, Ziggy. We are glad you are here. And like Ziggy said, he and I are great buddies. He's a mentor of mine. More than anything, has helped me mentor me through business, academic situations with my canine. You guys will all hear about it as we commence. But we do have the fabulous Mathew West. And Mathew, tell us about yourself.
Oh, thanks, Felicia. I am excited to be part of this show. I have worked in radio since I was 15 and a half. Well, on and off, not solid. I did 20 years of concrete, 6 years in the military, in the armies, and then uh, after I got done with concrete, I did work in the oil and gas industry for a while. But
Wow.
and that is where I was awakened to a lot of our environmental concerns. Um, I did recently take Shahada 2.5 years ago and became a Muslim. Um,
Wonderful.
Not because it was controversial, but because it felt right. Um, Although it was born out of controversy, I was reading everything I could about Islam just to understand what the fuss was all about. But anyways, recently moved to Grays Harbor from Grand Junction, Colorado, Western Slope, uh, and I moved out here, and I'm wondering why I didn't do this a lot sooner. Because I'm telling after living in the desert most of my life, I love the green here, so I'm happy to be here.
Well, welcome. It's so great to have you here, Mathew. One thing that I love about juxtaposition is all of us, we come from diverse backgrounds. We are, of course, diverse in our lives, but we definitely have diverse backgrounds and experiences. And of course, juxtaposition is about that. To the audience, you are going to see a lot of guests come in, and they're going to be from the local level, they're going to be regional, national, hopefully global guests, and they are going to also be from a very diverse walks of life and diverse backgrounds, and that is critical when we are examining the issues of environment, society, and governance. For me, my name is Felicia Mullins. I was actually born in Reno, Nevada, and my parents moved out here really to follow my mom, who had worked for AT&T when she started with Ma Bell at the age of 17, and had a job opportunity with AT&T when they changed their name, to move out to Seattle. And so I've been here in Washington ever since. I am a graduate of the Evergreen State College, a liberal arts college in Olympia. I am also a graduate of City University of Seattle's MBA program. I'm a finance and sustainability major. I'm a former business consultant, a former musician, and a world traveler. And so this is why I and Ziggy and Mathew, this is why I pinged them to help me begin and produce a juxtaposition. Because, hey, when you are, in the world and you get out of your boundaries, you can't help to really understand where people are coming from, especially on issues that, seek to, or, well, I want to say issues that could harm us all or issues that could benefit us all. And so that's partially what juxtaposition is about. Really quick to Mathew and Ziggy, and I'll probably start with Ziggy. Um, do you have a talent or an experience or something else about you that many people don't know, but you want to share with Juxtaposition's audience?
I think most of the people who know me know that I'm an avid animal welfare advocate. So I'll pick something a little more obscure. This was when I was in Seattle many moons ago now, but I have walked on hot coals in my bare feet and was
Ah,
not burnt. It did that more than once. I went to a seminar. I was working at a place, and I managed to get the company actually funded me to go to a workshop that a friend of mine was putting on through this little training company he was running, and that was what his gig was kind of. And so we did this. It was at a hotel outside of, I think it was out by it's north of Linwood somewhere, and Bellingham maybe. And anyway, so that we did this firewalking ceremony, and then I did it a couple more times at private parties. So it was a really empowering experience. But when I really faced my fear was when I went snorkeling in the Keys. I learned how much more scared I was of water than fire, and I'm an Aquarius, so that seems to be a little bit of a juxtaposition in itself. So
I was going to say, juxtaposition actually means contrast, and what it is to have a contrast where you walked on coals and then you conquered your fear also by snorkeling, by diving
yeah.
in water. That's awesome. What about you, Mathew? Do you have any juxtapositions in your life or any, rare talents or experiences that most people probably don't know about you?
Well, of course, my big drive is the environment. I have an 11-year-old daughter that is just the love of my life.
She's a genius.
That too, right?
Mhm.
IQ 143. Just kidding.
What?
No, but no, that's the main drive. But no, I have a small, well, two-car garage converted into a woodworking shop that I work at to kind of make ends meet a little bit, but more for the fun and love of just working with wood. I take pallets and I tear them apart and I repurpose the wood into furniture, sofa,
Wonderful.
butcher block, and all kinds of stuff.
to you as somebody who is environmentally minded and has a very a philosophical viewpoint about nature. And to me, it's about closed loop. It's about reclaiming instead of just wasting, and to turn that into to repurpose things like pallets into use and art is one of the greatest callings one person can have. And and I can't wait till we get started, and we can definitely promote your wood shop here on Juxtaposition, because that's what we are about for sure. A little bit about myself, in terms of I have 3 things, maybe 4. Let me see. I was rescued off of a Alaska mud flat, and because of that, when I went into the U.S. military, I was stationed at Alaska, and I think it was because of that. So more to come. Adam Sandler, the actor and producer, once flipped me the bird, because I was like, and he was like, flip me the bird. And I applied for a summer program to Oxford University in England. I was accepted, but didn't have enough money. And then I found out later that at that time, the church, I was raised Catholic, the church would have given me the money to go there.
Oh.
so I think about that every day, but it's never stopped me from striving to become academic. I'm a lifelong learner, and what I am actually relearning again is awesome guitar, and and getting back into shape so I can sing again, and use my talent to express my vision more than just a podcast.
There you go.
But anyways, thank you, Mathew and Ziggy. This is who we are. My name is Felicia. You've heard about Mathew. You've heard about Ziggy. We are Juxtaposition, and you will see weekly podcast from us on social media. We will definitely be interested in knowing who you are, especially if you're a local person who is as passionate as we are in the areas of environment, society, and governance economics. And we will talk to you soon, because coming up, we're going to tell you a little more about juxtaposition in just 1 minute. Welcome back to Juxtaposition. Thank you for hanging out with us. And right now we're going to tell you about juxtaposition. What is juxtaposition? What is the concept? What is the mission? What is the purpose of what we're doing? Why are, Mathew and Ziggy and my crazy butt doing this? We're just local citizens. Why should we be doing a podcast? So right now I'm back with Ziggy and Mathew, and I am going to share the screen so that everyone can see exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about juxtaposition. We are going to begin with the purpose. The purpose of the Juxtaposition podcast is to basically provide its educated and informed audience, which is you, with news, information, and fresh perspectives around the intersections of technology, economics, environmental, and social issues, as well as current events and other topics. And so right now I am going to unshare my screen, and we're going to start with, I think we're going to start with Ziggy. Did I say that correctly? Or was it you, Mathew? I think it was Ziggy. So we're going to let's start with Ziggy. And Ziggy, I want to ask you, what do you think about the purpose of this podcast? How does it resonate with you? Do you think that it has a purpose, and what is it?
Absolutely. We have a purpose for being here, and that's to, my purpose is always to educate and enlighten. I want the world to change, and as passionate as I am and frustrated as I get at the pace being too slow, I know that violence is never the answer to change. It's education, and so that's my purpose for being here is to bring information to people in fun and exciting ways and to get people to start thinking and want to take action in our democracy.
Right on. I agree. I think the purpose of our podcast is to, get people who normally don't have a voice to join us, to learn, and to participate. This is one reason why our guest spots will be including local citizens, people like you, me, and Mathew. Mathew, what do you think about the purpose of juxtaposition?
I think Ziggy nailed it. The only thing that I would add is that, in order to participate in our democracy, the more, I don't think there's such a thing as a shortage of information.
Yeah.
And I think the more voices that we bring in front of, young people, old people, people of all ages, and we get them informed uh, on the issues that they can make a more informed vote.
That's very critical considering that we are about ready to have another presidential election. And this time it is more heated around issues of, government corruption, climate change, civil rights, and the economy and its sustainability. So awesome, Mathew. Ziggy and Mathew, thank you so much for sharing what the purpose is for juxtaposition. Now, let's look at the mission. Our mission, I believe, is to basically provide our awesome audience, which again is you out there watching us, with a unique analysis of current events and topical issues like climate change, like corruption, like technology. These are issues that should be looked at through the lenses of diversity. And we are hoping to present a systemic view. So instead of just looking at the issue of technology just on its face, we want to look at the issue of technology in the lens of society, in the lens of economics, in the lens of wealth and income, jobs, environment, all of these issues, or all of these other aspects of our civilization, I should say. And we also want to go further. We want to know how all of these issues that we are seeing today impact local communities. So, we hear a lot of national and global headlines about all kinds of things, but how do they impact local communities? And so that's what juxtaposition is about. I'm going to start this one again. Well, of course, I got to unshare the screen, but while I'm doing that, I would like Mathew to begin and tell us about the mission of juxtaposition in his view.
I really like the last little bit about looking at each of the issues through a different the different lenses of because uh, I really miss the fact that people have at least it seems to me like people in the last 15, 20 years have stopped calling the United States the melting pot of the world. Because that's
Wow.
exactly what we are. We got people of all races and creeds, moral values, religious views. And every single one of us does look at, the different issues and everything from, I look at things different than you do. And I look at things different than Ziggy does.
Yeah.
And, you bring our guests and I'm excited because I really think we're going to get a lot of information from a lot of people, not just us.
And I love what you're saying because, perspective is also important to democracy. It's not
Bingo.
really entirely about expressing our thoughts, but it's about perspective. It's about understanding how our perspectives as individuals and are the roles that we play in our society and country, and how that perspective, aligns our contrasts with our citizens, our neighbors, our bosses, our coworkers, and our, our fellow
Exactly.
Americans. What about you, Ziggy? What do you think of the mission of juxtaposition is? What do you have to say on it?
Felicia, I think that part of my mission is to help us raise the level of the conversation,
Yes.
and again, to get people participating, but to get them doing that, as Mathew was saying, to get a more informed population, which will raise the level of our democracy. It will raise the level of the people who are representing us, because we'll have people who are more informed, not only about voting, but about guarding against others' infiltration into our voting system. So I'm excited this is an
Yeah.
opportunity to make some significant changes.
Oh my gosh, I just love it. Yes, the mission of juxtaposition should be about securing our rights, securing our nation, and I think securing the implicit and intrinsic agreement that we all have with each other, as Americans, as immigrants, as hosts of people from around the world. And I think part of that intrinsic agreement is having civil conversation and honoring perspectives and understanding where people really come from. So yeah, definitely agree with that. Okay, so let's talk about the objectives of our podcast. Again, screen share. What? Gotta love Scott. So we have the objective, and finally, I'm gonna minimize this little video window. Sorry, I didn't do that for you, Mathew. So the objectives, our goal, of course, in engaging a diverse and global cross-generational audience, which is very interesting. We want people of all generations to contribute. Is basically to not only increase understanding, just as Ziggy and Mathew had said, but to basically start solving these issues instead of just sitting around and complaining about climate change and technology and wealth and income and so all that stuff. We want to not only provide information, but we want to get people engaged in solving these issues and to tell us what they're doing on a personal or business level or civic level to be a part of the solution and not the problem. In addition, we definitely seek to inspire thought leaders like Mathew's daughter to do the same thing, to start their own conversations, and to definitely act on these issues instead of, again, just being armchair pundits and complaining, right? So this is why we will also, again, be hosting local, regional, and national people from all religions and all backgrounds, whether they are poor or wealthy. We're going to have some very controversial guests on with their perspectives. We will be hosting people that probably colleges like Berkeley won't host. And you're going to see that because, yes, they are a part of democracy too. And so you'll see that. That is our goal. And I'm going to unshare screen. But for now, Mathew, what do you think about the objectives? Like, for instance, in 1 to 2 or maybe 3 years, what are the objectives that our podcast should have hit?
I think the again, this is just so well written. We I can't stop thinking about not just where our show is going to be, but where our country is going to be in 2 to 3 years. And I think the more information we get out there, the more armed people will be, mentally. And uh, my favorite topic that I've been reading about in the last week are the young people that have been protesting in Europe. They literally walked out of their classrooms.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and that was because they were armed with information. They knew what they were talking about. And the leaders I know one MP in London was just taken aback because he got called out
Yeah.
by young people. And I loved it.
I loved it too. And it reminds me of the recent, right to life, or not right to life, or walk for life, about the that came out of the school shooting in Florida, and how young people just took it over, and they still are. Ziggy, for you, what is the objective of juxtaposition? What does that mean for you, and where would you like to see the podcast be in 1 to 3 years? What objectives would you have liked it to have made?
I would love to see us have a whole blog full of stories of viewers who have engaged in one way or another in democracy, who have started to participate. Kamala Harris made a point in an email that we really have not taken the responsibility seriously of educating several generations now about the fact that we have to fight for democracy. It's not something that you win and then enjoy the fruits of for the rest of eternity. And so that's something that I would be really proud to look back on as having helped to increase the participation in our democracy and educating people about what it really means. I know that, like many, many, many Americans, I was very slovenly about, I voted, but then I expected the people who were in office to do my bidding, and I want to be part of changing that.
Right on. And I totally agree with that. I want to see that our podcast fits in a greater ecosystem of information and communication and engagement that uplifts our democracy, because that's what it's about. And you can't have democracy without people being engaged, because that's democracy. So thank you so much, Ziggy and Mathew. And thank you so much, audience, for tuning in to Juxtaposition. We are about ready to talk about the new Green Deal. And when we get back, we have Mathew leading us in that conversation. We will have a roundtable discussion afterward that is fulfilling our purpose, our mission, and of course, our goals in presenting to you issues and information in ways that are viewed in a systemic from the perspective of systems thinking and from diverse standpoints. So stay tuned. We'll be with you in 10 and 10. I'm Felicia, here with Ziggy and Mathew, and we are going to begin our discussion on the new Green Deal. And I'm so glad we have Mathew West. Hey, Mathew, how are you doing so far?
I'm doing great, and I tell you what, I'm doing really great now that we got something like the new Green Deal on the table, because as you know, the environment's pretty much important to me because of my daughter. Let's start this off by watching this short video from the Washington Post.
Representative Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Ed Markey recently released a resolution for the Green New Deal. President Trump responded. As part of the Green New Deal's rollout, Representative Ocasio-Cortez's office released an accompanying frequently asked questions document, which caused some confusion. As a response, Ocasio-Cortez wrote this tweet. The Green New Deal does not propose to eliminate all cars, airplanes, cows, all these industries, the military. That's what the president tweeted, but it's not in the resolution. And no one created doctored versions of the Green New Deal resolution or documents that included these outlandish proposals. The Green New Deal is a sweeping manifesto that calls for major changes in American society, including repairing and upgrading the infrastructure in the U.S., overhauling transportation systems to eliminate pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. So when the president talks about cars and cows and airplanes, It's important to note he's not talking about the resolution itself, which is more limited. He's talking about some FAQ documents that were released by Ocasio-Cortez's office. These FAQ documents drew a fair bit of criticism, caused some confusion. Fox News commentators seized on this line that said that the Green New Deal would provide economic security for anyone unable or unwilling to work, and Ocasio-Cortez has since walked it back. The resolution is one thing, the FAQ is another. This has been withdrawn, so this is what matters. To the extent that resolutions matter, because it wouldn't have the force of law, it's not legislation, it's just a statement of broad principle. So the bottom line is that President Trump is misrepresenting the terms of the Green New Deal. On the other hand, when Representative Ocasio-Cortez mentions doctored documents that are out there when she defends herself from these criticisms, that's misleading, because the doctored document that's out there refers to recycling urine. No one is criticizing her for, proposing to recycle urine. It's all the other stuff that was in the actual FAQs from her office. So in this case, we decided not to award Pinocchios because there has been so much equivocation and miscommunication apparently between what's actually in the deal, what the sponsors say, what has been withdrawn. So with all those moving parts, it's not really feasible to give Pinocchios.
Thank you so much for sharing that video. It's highly informative, Matt. Wow, I'm just amazed. I mean, this can transform our economy. I know I've done a little research, based on your taking over this topic, as an environmentalist but what is it? I mean, I'm still kind of out to lunch. Like, what is the new Green Deal? Can you tell us?
Absolutely. As everyone is aware of what climate change is, more or less, and people have been wanting something to be done for a very long time. As everybody knows, in the last month, I think it's only been in the last couple of weeks, there's been quite a few student strikes around Europe. And of course, where I'm at, the left of the left, and most moderates, Democrats have been on board. Even a few Republicans have been on board. But what it is it was introduced by freshman Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It's called House Resolution 109, and it basically is a non-binding agreement that is kind of a page mark to say we're going to start introducing legislation to address climate change, but not just climate change. It's addressing jobs, infrastructure, racial and economic inequality, and of course, last but not least, climate change. So how are we all going to do this? They did talk a little bit about it in the video, but of course, we're going to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2030. There's literally, by revamping a lot of the infrastructure around our country, we're going to create millions of high-wage jobs, creating sustainable infrastructure, including high-speed rail, water systems that are free of lead and other pollutants, power grid that is emission-free and, most importantly, sustainable. And they're going to do a lot of upgrading of existing buildings and passing laws that any new buildings that are going to be constructed have to be sustainable and, solar or what have you. One of the most controversial subjects is how they're going to promote green farming by addressing industrial farming and ranching practices.
Wow.
There is a plan on the table also to do zero emission transportation system, not only public, but private. They're going to have public subsidies out there so that you can buy a green car. And most importantly, at least on my list, is cleaning up existing hazardous waste sites. And then, of course, the big question is, how are we going to pay for all this? They're going to bring back a page from FDR's New Deal by doing a portion of the financing through bonds that'll be sold to people. And Another idea is to borrow against the Federal Reserve. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Man, you have me busting out my notebook. Thank you so much. And again, what is the name of the bill? I mean, not the number, like the name and number. Can you cite that again?
Yeah, no problem. It's House Resolution 109.
Excellent. In a couple of seconds, we will be back to talk about House Resolution 109 and the new Green Deal.
Wake up to reality. The earth is fading fast. We only have one life to live. We've gotta make it last.
Excellent. We're back with Matt, and who is talking about the new Green Deal. And actually, I'm going to throw Ziggy the first question to open up our discussion about the new Green Deal. Ziggy, do you have a question for Matt?
I do, Matthew, from the perspective of society and culture. Thinking about the new Green Deal obviously would make some significant changes in our culture and our values, not necessarily the values we say we have, but the values we actually practice and the way we live. And so I'm wondering about that perspective, about your perspective on why we're talking about this right now. Obviously, the climate crisis has been a topic in the news for a long time, but this new Green New Deal is hot in the news, and it has everybody talking about it. Why is it now? Does that maybe an indication that we're ready to make some of the changes that are necessary?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, of course, to me and a lot of people, we've been ready for this for a very long time. But I honestly believe that now that we have a lot of, brand new freshman representatives in Congress, a lot of them are what's driving this. The person who brought this up to the House, House Resolution 109, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's brand new. This isn't somebody who's been in Congress for a while. She's brand new, and I think what's kept it out of from actually happening for a very long time is a lot of the fossil fuel money that has been pipelined right into Congress.
I kind of want to interject on that and say that that's a great question, Ziggy. And you hit it, Matthew. I think that the new Green Deal has to do with culture as much as it does politics and economics. But I think just looking at culture, you have a young Congress. The 116th Congress is very young. It's very diverse. It has, the most women and people of color and people of different faiths ever in history. It also has a lot of people who are about climate change and whose communities have been impacted by it, whether or not we disagree or agree on what it is and if it's happening. So yeah, definitely, I can see that it took a new Congress to basically push the issue forward. And I think that has to do with youth. And I think it has to do with all of a sudden we have new people who are of different walks of life finally sharing the voices of their constituents who are also, who have been historically left out of the conversation about climate change. And I also want to say I agree with you, Mathew, about how part of that the culture that Ziggy presented around the lack of political will to deal with climate change has to do with a culture of lobbying and a culture of politics where it's really not about being elected and representing citizens, but a lot of it is being elected and representing business and corporate interests, who of course should be represented, but it's very difficult for citizens to have a conversation or to be able to enact or propel change in the environment and climate when you have all these monies from corporations who really don't want to see that end. They don't want to see their business being impacted. In fact, my question to you is, at this moment in your research on the new Green Deal, who are some of the opponents of the new Green Deal that you've read about or that you foresee? And also, what are Congress people saying about the new Green Deal? Are they really on board with it? Are they on board with the new representatives and the existing ones that are supporting it?
Yeah, that's a great question, and there are some surprising answers. I was just looking here. There was over 40. I think there was over 40 or 50 people from both the House and the Senate that signed on to it in the first place.
Wow.
Which are good numbers. They're not great numbers. We'll need to win over some more support to get any further laws, because like I said, this is not a law. This is only like a very strong suggestion. Let's put it that way. But on the flip side, to answer your first question, a lot of the opposition does come straight out of the people who have had money from the fossil fuel industries given to them. Of course, a lot of the Republican Party. I have an article here from The Intercept, and the title of it is "Who's Afraid of the Green New Deal?" And Republicans, just to quote a part of it, Republicans being paid by the fossil fuel industry have come out against a plan for the United States to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. It's hardly surprising that they're being joined by prominent Democrats in casting doubt on the idea is a signal for how all tribalism around climate change are starting to radically shift. And the only reason why that is shifting is because of fossil fuel money.
And I hope I can interject again, Ziggy. I don't want to interrupt you. But I just, what you're telling me is big, because it, and I think it definitely goes to culture. You're saying, at least from the Intercept article, that there's actually bipartisanship opposition.
Yes.
And I have to actually agree with that, because when I was doing some research on the new Green Deal, I saw a lot of articles from about Democrats and Republicans in Congress, and they were basically attacking the naivety of the writers of the new Green Deal.
Yeah.
They were attacking the age. They're attacking the inexperience. And instantly I was like, wow, these are seasoned congressmen and women, senators who are seasoned and in their season. And they're attacking young people who are coming in and basically not really looking at the policy itself. They're really just attacking them like they're young people. They don't know anything about government. They're new. Who cares? So I see that. But you said something about winning support. You said, well, in order for us to win support on the new Green Deal, there has to be, a lot of support from seasoned people. And I just want to say this: why do we need to support the new Green Deal in the first place? Like, why is this important? Why is the new Green Deal important to anybody, especially in rural areas?
Well, I think it's important worldwide, how do I put this? In no more of important place than Grays Harbor. As you know, a large part of the jobs around here do revolve around fishing, forestry, tourism, just to name a few. And if the oceans continue to warm, that changes the chemical composition of the ocean, and it becomes more acidic. I don't know about you, but I've had acid splashed on me, not strong acid, but when I used to be working in concrete, we worked with muriatic acid. That's a lot stronger than what I'm talking about that it could happen to the ocean, but it's caustic. Large portions of the coral reefs are bleaching. I can't imagine, what that would do with our razor clam digs, that just finished up. If we get a warmer climate here in the Northwest, that's going to have a severe impact on our forestry.
And that's our industries. I kind of want to move this on.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
But absolutely. Ziggy, I think you have another question for Mathew.
Yes, I was interested in a quote from Alexandria Osaria-Cortez in a recent article on Grist was the website, and she was being challenged by opposition who were saying that the new Green Deal is basically attacking the agricultural industry, as you're talking about, that goes to the fossil fuel money also, and that it was trying to turn everyone into vegetarians. And that really, again, plays to society and culture, because food is definitely a huge root in our culture. And she kind of, in her reply, she actually sort of made fun of the idea of the whole world becoming vegetarian, that it was crazy, which I thought was, she kind of put a limit on where crazy ends. But anyway, I wanted to ask you about the changes that this could make to our food production.
Yeah, and Ziggy, I just want to follow up too, because I'm a Twitterati, whatever. Twitterati.
You are the Twitterati.
But I think, I actually have to research this, so I'm not going to actually bring it up. But on Twitter, I've seen many people in government, including some really prominent leaders, say that if the new Green Deal passes, there will be no planes, no cars, no computers.
Oh, yeah.
So
I saw that too.
So Mathew, definitely following up with Ziggy, is the new Green Deal going to destroy food and planes and cars and technology and everything as we know it?
Absolutely not. The whole drive is to bring everything, to make it sustainable, to bring down carbon emissions. I don't know about you, but I don't know that I would want a plane with a battery life. So I don't see them impacting or outlawing planes. Will they make them cleaner? Absolutely. I think there's a lot of room for improvement all across the board. I mean, and to be fair, the airline industry did a lot in the last 20 years to clean up that. As far as agriculture, yes, they are going after agriculture, and it's not just the beef and chicken industry. It's farms in general. It's to make it more sustainable and greener. We're not going to try to make everybody vegetarians. You take away my chicken, I'm going to get upset. And I support the Green New Deal.
Hamburgers for me. Steak.
Exactly. But, it is to make it greener, more sustainable, because a lot of the fertilizers and stuff like that they use is very caustic for the soil.
Of course, yeah.
And I have to chime in and say that I'm good if it does make the world vegetarian. So that's my vote. Okay, back to you, Felicia.
Chicken, sorry.
Well, I try to eat vegetarian most of the time, but I need my steak every once in a while. So as long as us meat eaters have access. But my thing is, I just wanted to say, a lot of the changes that the new Green Deal could change. I mean, it's going to change. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. The new Green Deal is basically, to me, it's more like a vision statement and a plan for a long-term transition, so that the next generation can live in can have an economy that is less harmful. And I'm not even talking about millennials. I'm talking about the next generation, like my niece, who's 9 months old. That generation isn't going to come into power until their 30s and 40s, or their kids won't even come into power, until 60 years from now. So the way I see the new Green Deal is it's a long-term transition. I mean, already business and industry is leading it. Already the UN is leading it. Already, at least European countries, you have Switzerland, you have Sweden, I believe Denmark, they have zero, they import zero fuel. They import zero oil, So you have countries like that actually produce enough energy with a combination of fossil fuel and renewable fuels to be independent, to have energy independence,
Yeah.
So that's how I see it. It's kind of like, this is nothing new. You already have Boeing developing airplanes that aren't based on fossil fuels. You already have Tesla. You already have all of the major automakers in the world developing hybrid and electric cars. I mean, the list goes on. So to me, it's kind of funny to look at the reaction to it. We have a little more time.
Well,
how are we going to fund this, Mathew? How are we going to fund the new Green Deal?
Well, and that's one of the questions on everybody's tongue. Just to interject to what you were saying, especially where agriculture and transportation is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite phrases from House Resolution 109 is "where technologically feasible." If it can't be done, they're not going to say you have to do this,
Mm-hmm.
But how are we going to finance this? One of my favorite plans that I've heard tossed around is going back to the 1939 New Deal that Franklin Delano Roosevelt instituted, where they did, in part, there was a group of private banks that helped finance it, and I don't have the name right in front of me. Actually, yeah, I do. I just got an Alt tab. But there was a group of private banks that helped finance it, and then also a large part of it back then. I don't know if anybody remembers hearing about war bonds. But
I do, absolutely.
Yeah, people could buy war bonds,
Yeah.
and that's how they financed a lot of the New Deal.
World War II.
World War II, that's right. Here it is.
Yeah.
The rest will either be through loans from a conglomeration of public banks that were called the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, the RFC. And one of the other plans that is being tossed around as an idea is taking a page out of the Japanese playbook to finance it entirely through the Federal Reserve. And how that would work is the Federal Reserve would ultimately buy back all of the debt, and they would own it entirely and pay it back. Because a lot of people think that we can't pay back the debt. Well, Japan has not only done it, but Japan as a government is making a profit.
I think this is really interesting right now. We are over time for our discussion, but what we're going to do is we will continue the discussion, and people will be able to see it on another standalone recording. But for now, I am Felicia. You have seen Ziggy T and Mathew West, and this is Juxtaposition. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any guest ideas or anything to say, you can definitely contact us through our social media sites, which will be listed in the credits. Thank you so much for joining us, Juxtapositioners. And remember, always think globally and act locally. Have a great day.
'Cause I got hope and smiles. I am